Good morning, my brothers and sisters and all my friends. This morning we are going to talk about the divination of the four varnas of Hindu religion. The great Sanatana Dharma, the great Vedic civilization, recognized these four major attributes, the four major dominant mental faculties of a human being. And these four dominant mental faculties, which create an ecosystem of universal benevolence and welfare and of goodwill, are recognized as four varnas of the Hindu society. One human being has these four dominant characters, these four major faculties of the mind, which we could raise into a dominant character by our mental attitude. All what we have to do is to subscribe to that mental faculty. And that mental faculty will dominate our life and our thought, word and deed every moment of our existence upon earth. But you don't have to be prisoner of that dominant faculty forever. We could use it like a swastika chakra, like a sudarshan chakra, like a swastika, having four arms. And we could make a wheel of universal benevolence and the wheel of dharma upon earth to create an ecosystem of peace, progress and prosperity for one and all. And these four major faculties of the mind, the human character, the human mind, are the great Brahmana, the great Chhatariya, the great Vaishya and the great Sudra. I'm sorry these names had been so much misused in the later years and later ages that we feel so alarmed and we feel so offended when somebody calls us Sudra. But my dear brothers and sisters, I'm not trying to establish a new order of discrimination in the Hindu society, but what I'm trying to say is that we could perform the divination through the wisdom and knowledge of knowing the truth. And the truth is that we all have these four varnas present in own mind, and we also behave at certain times as a Sudra ourselves. When we clean our body, we are a Sudra. When we feed our body and work for the five biological needs, food, shelter, clothes, education and medical care, we are a Vaishya, we are a businessman, we are the man of commerce in the second mental faculty. And the third one, we are Kshatriya when we practice the universal empathy and we feel the pain and suffering of another human being and another sentient being, and we are moved through our emotion and our heart so much, so deeply, that we are ready to die and we sacrifice our own life to save another human being, another sentient being suffering. in order to save another human being and another sentient being from the suffering, the pain and suffering, is the character of a Kshatriya. And we all have that mental faculty. When the time comes, we are aroused, we are asked from within that we must save that human being and save that person's life. Like somebody is drowning, you don't think twice. These faculties are automatic. These are embedded, implanted in the human psyche and the human evolutionary apparatus of mirror neurons, that we could feel the same pain as our own. We are made like this. So to sacrifice our own life in order to save somebody's life of a human being or a sentient being is the character of a Kshatriya, the great warrior. And the fourth is Brahmana. And Brahmana is the great mental attitude which calls for universal empathy, the great sadhana, the great practice of universal empathy for each and every sentient being and each and every human being on earth. And as it says in Bhagavad Gita, the great divine song, Lord Krishna says, Atmavat sarva bhutesu ye pasati se pandita. That's the greatest definition of a Brahmana, the great mental attitude of a Brahmana, the great mental attitude of the human mind, when it acts like a Brahmana. The great human mind, when it acts like a Brahmana, moved by the universal empathy, then it says, Atmavat sarva bhutesu ye pasati se pandita. The one who could see all the sentient beings and all the human beings in his own heart, and he could see himself in their hearts. Atmavat sarva bhutesu ye pasati se pandita. The one who has that eye is the Pandit. He is the Brahmana. And also the great sacred thread, the Janani, a Brahmana keeps, is the great reminder to him that he is not just one gender, he is both. He represents the great Ardhanarishwar Swarupa of Lord Shiva. The Lord Ardhanarishwar, Lord Shiva, manifested both the genders in one body. And the Brahmana is supposed to be aware about both the genders present in the human genome and the human body, and he has to go beyond these two genders and establish the great unity of these genders like Lord Shiva to become Par Brahman, to go beyond the genders of Ardhanarishwar and establish the great unity of Par Brahman. So he must be in that mental environment of Par Brahman, the great unity of both the genders. And so the great sacred thread, the Janani, is the reminder to this Brahmana that you must have this attitude of creating the unity of genders, and you are not supposed to discriminate a man and woman, a child and old, anybody, all the sentient beings beyond the genders, beyond any divisions, as your own, in your own heart. And when we allow somebody in our own heart and in our own house, do we discriminate him on the basis of divisions, on the basis of separatism, the basis of all kind of boundaries? No. When we allow somebody in our own heart, Atmavat sarva bhutesu, when we allow all the sentient beings in our own heart and then see them in our own heart, do we discriminate? No, we don't. So that's a true Brahmana. That's the mental attitude of this great human mind, which has this great intention and resolution to create the unity of all. And that's why we are given the human mind, to create the grand unity, universal unity of this great diversity, infinite diversity. And that is the job of human mind. And that's why we are at this doorstep of the heaven and earth. We are the doorkeepers. We are the watchmen of the heaven. And we are supposed to take all the energies of the matter of all the diversity and establish the grand unity, universal unity. And that is the job of a human being, and that's the job of the human mind, and that's the job of that great dominant human mind which creates the unity of all the genders, all the boundaries, all the diversities into the grand unity. And that's the character of the great Pandit. As Lord Krishna says, Atmavat Sarva Bhutesu Yapasati Sapanita, the one who has that eye to see everybody in his own heart and see himself in their heart, and the one who has that eye, that universal empathy implanted in the eye, the embodiment of the universal empathy as the human eye, is the great Pandit, the great civilized and the great cultured and the great educated person, the human being. And so that's the great character, the great mental faculty to create the unity in the diversity, to create the unity of both the genders, the great yoga of Ardhanarishwara, to become the Parbrahm, to go beyond the genders. My brothers and sisters, my talk is not to establish the divisions forever, but my talk is to perform the divination of these four varnas, that these are present in everybody. If anybody discriminates anybody else on the name of these four varnas, is ignorant person. He is not educated, he is not civilized, and he is unfit to live in the human society because he is ignorant and he is practicing separatism and the boundaries. Because Lord Krishna said in the same breath, when he described the great Pandit with the universal empathy embedded in the eyes, that eye of universal empathy, Atmavata Sarva Bhutesu. So in the same breath, Lord Krishna also said, Vasudev Kutumbkam. To create the Vasudev Kutumbkam on earth is the job of that dominant mental faculty of a Brahmana, to create the unity in diversity. That is our human mind, and that we are needed and asked, and that is our evolutionary mandate, to create the Raja Yoga. That is the four yogas, the four organs of the yoga are described in very well and have the very well correspondence with these four varnas, the mental faculties. And Raja Yoga is the integration of all the other three organs and four organs into one mind. And that is the great dominant mental character, the dominant mental faculty to create the unity, grand unity in this infinite diversity of forms and of the phenomenal world. So that's Brahmana, that's our own human faculties of the mind, and we need to practice the Raja Yoga, and that's the character of Brahmana. The great Bhakti Yoga is the Sudra. The great Bhakti Yoga is at the level of a Sudra, at the level of a servant, at the level of a person who becomes as a volunteer to serve everybody. And it has such a beautiful approach and mental faculty that when we become the great volunteers, the great bodhisattvas, the great volunteers to create an ecosystem of peace, progress and prosperity and comfort and happiness of every sentient beings, we are performing the great work of Lord Hanuman, the Ram Sevak. We are the servants of gods. We are the great Sudras of the God. Nar Seva is Narayan Seva. To serve the humanity is the service of the God. That's the great motto, the great slogan, the great proclamation of Bhakti Yoga, of Lord Hanuman. And the second is Karma Yoga. And the great Karma Yoga is the great correspondence with the Vaishya, or the second place. And then third is the Janani Yoga, where the truth is staged as the truth. And to know the truth, we have to know the mirror neurons and the universal mandate of evolutionary mandate of the universe, and that is to know the truth as it is, the Janani Yoga. And the truth is that we have the mirror neurons and we must be moved in our heart to save somebody's life like a great warrior, the great Kshatriyas. And the Raja Yoga is the great Brahmana, to create the unity in the diversity. So that's the mental faculty. So any Brahmana who practices in today's society the separatism, the discrimination, and all kind of those talks of caste and creed and divisions, is not a Brahmana. He's a Sudra. He's worse than a human being, because he is against the evolutionary mandate of Mother Nature and of the God and the creation of God here on earth, that we all are brothers and sisters, and we all human beings are asked in 21st centuries to create the grand unity of the human family into a great family of God, as the Vasudev Kutumbkam, as Lord Krishna asked us to do in 21st century. We must have that mental attitude to create the grand unity through the Raja Yoga. My dear brothers and sisters, the 4 great ages of Hindu calendar also correspond with these 4 faculties. In the first Satyuga, when it says the truth prevailed as within, so without, as above, so below, it had the corresponding truth everywhere. The truth within and truth without was one and the same correspondence. The great law of correspondence was the great dominant law of Satyuga. When everybody had the truth on tongue, and truth in thought, and truth of action, and there was no division of inside and outside, there was no division in the consciousness within and consciousness without. So that was the great Yuga, the Satyuga. The great age of the truth, the great age of unity, the great age of universal correspondence. That was Satyuga. And the second was Tretayug, and that was the great Tretayug, was the great age of Kshatriya, the great warrior, to establish the dharma, the rule of law, the rule of dharma and the truth dharma. The religion of truth must be established, and that was the time of establishing the great law of dharma, the great code of conduct, to create the ecosystem of peace, progress and prosperity for everybody on planet Earth. And that was Kshatriya, the age of Kshatriya. The third age of Dwapara was the age of a Vaishya, the age of the commerce, the age of application of the great knowledge, the great wisdom of Satyuga and Tretayuga into commerce, into day-to-day life, as a grasti, as a family person, as a social person, as a family, husband, wife and kids. So the commerce is the great dominant character, the great dominant faculty of the Dwapara Yoga. And Kalyuga is the age of Bhakti Yoga, is the age of service. And we need to, every human being must become and transform himself into a cosmic warrior. A cosmic volunteer. We have to have this dominant character in 21st century, and let's all be the great Sudras. Let's all be the great servants of God. Let's all be the servants of the humanity. Let's all be the servants of the whole universe. As the great volunteers, the universal volunteers, the cosmic volunteers. And let's drop the victimhood. Let's drop the attitude of being a victim here. Let's celebrate the great fortune of human existence, of the great human body, the great human existence here on the planet Earth. Let's celebrate our human birth by being the cosmic volunteers, the great Sudras, the servants of God, the servants of the human society, and create the one family of God upon earth. So that's the message of Kalyuga. That's the great message of Bhakti Yoga, that we could ascend to God through a word, through a mantra, through a Guru mantra. And that is what all the new religions are trying to teach, that we have that great faculty in our mind through chanting the mantra incessantly, which is known as Japji Maharaj, the Japji Guru, and in Buddhism, which is performed on the prayer wheel all the time, Om Mane Padme Hum, the great mantras, which are given from a guru to the disciple. And if you repeat those mantras, you chant those mantras within all the time, while going through your routine work of the life and existence, believe me, your mind will be concentrated on one point and you will achieve the state of samadhi just by chanting the great mantra all the time. I have done it personally, so I speak from my own personal experience that it happens. And you could do that. And doesn't matter, you don't have to, if you don't want to go to any guru, please, you can pick up any mantra, any word or anything, any sentence. Today I tell you the mystery of this tradition, that you could decide on any word or any sentence or any mantra which you like most, and repeat that incessantly like a japji. Keep on repeating that while you go through the routine life of the daily life, and one day you will achieve the samadhi in your mind, and you will be amazed to discover this great mental faculty of Kalyuga, the great mental faculty of the Bhakti Yoga, the great mental faculty of the Sudra, the great cosmic volunteer. So in all these four varnas, the Sudra is the greatest. Why Sudra is the greatest? Because Sudra is the cosmic volunteer. The Sudra is that great wisdom personage, the great wisdom incarnated to become the cosmic volunteer, to become the bodhisattva, to become like Maharshi Ramana, who said, I don't want the moksha, to become the last in the line, like Mahatma Gandhi when he said, the step you take now, he's asking himself, recall the face of the most weakest and the poorest man on earth, and the step you contemplate to take now, will that step be of any use to him? What Mahatma Gandhi did, Mahatma Gandhi put himself in the last of the line, and he threw away all those 7 layers of a Victorian gentleman and became a naked fakir, as it was said by Winston Churchill, the great leader, the British leader, that he was like a naked fakir. That was Mahatma Gandhi, the great Mahatma Gandhi of Kalyuga, the great messenger, and who he used to clean his own toilets, and he used to carry his own toilets and his own watch, and he was the 4 varnas incarnated in the human body. He practiced the great yoga of these 4 varnas. So every human being must perform the great yoga of these 4 varnas. The great Brahmana, the great Kshatriya, the great Vaishya, the commercial man, the family man, and the great cosmic volunteer, the great Sudra, the great Ram Sevak. So from a cosmic volunteer, we need to turn into the volunteer, the servant of the humanity, and then from servant of humanity, we need to move on to become the Ram Sevak, the servant of God, the servant of the whole creation. In the same manner, the great Vaishya must be transformed himself, transmute himself into from Jan to Mahajan, and from a Mahajan to a great Sahukara like Andrew Carnegie of the contemporary times, of the great Scotsman who gave away his whole fortune and his money, and he created all the great institutions of perpetual peace, prosperity and progress in the United States. And if anybody wants to read his great mantra, wealth, the gospel of the wealth, please, you are welcome to read, and you will discover that he was the greatest embodiment of a Sahukara who went beyond the Mahajan, the great Mahajan, the great Sahukara, like the great Indian kings who used to leave the kingdom behind, the great Mahajana who used to create the great infrastructure of perpetual peace, progress and prosperity, that great Sahukara. And then from a Kshatriya, we need to become the great Kshetrapal, the keeper of the whole area, the keeper of the dharma, the watchman of the dharma, the great warrior, the Kshatriya, the Kshetrapal. So we need to become from a Kshatriya to a Kshetrapal as the keeper of the whole area, the keeper of the dharma in that area, in that circle of compassion, and the protector of that circle of compassion as a Kshetrapal, from Kshatriya to Kshetrapal. And from a Brahmana, we need to become the great learned Pandit and civilized and educated Pandit, as Lord Krishna asked us to do it. And through his great message and great mantra saying, Atmavat Sarva Bhutesu Ye Pasati Sa Pandita. So we must, a Brahmana must go beyond the great Varna of Brahmana to the great Vaishnava. The great Vaishnava is a true Pandit. To see all the sentient beings and human beings in his own heart, and he himself to see himself in their hearts. So that's a great Brahmana, the great Vaishnava. So a Brahmana must transmute himself into a great Vaishnava, that great Parbrahma Shiva. Thank you very much and have a great, beautiful day. Thank you very much, my brothers and sisters.